Hi, welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. We have people from all over the world. And I'm Alex Arnold. I'm the executive consultant for the Taos Institute. I'm really happy to host you today, and I'm very, very pleased to be with Tanya Cruz, Diana Whitney, and Marlene Ogawa for this special Taos conversation, shaping conversations for transformation. And this is going to be a conversation about how they use their book, Thriving Women, Thriving World, an invitation to dialogue, healing, and inspired action. Yes, thank you, Diana, for showing the book. I will also put the link in the chat. That's the link to the book. And so I will not take too much of your time and just pass it on to our co-hosts today. Thank you all for doing this conversation today.
Thank you very much, Alex, and welcome, everyone. Welcome, welcome. I am Diana Whitney, and I'm delighted to be here with my colleagues. As we wrote in the little blurb, it's a bit of a reunion for us. We haven't had something to do together for a long time, so this is just delightful. And Tanya and Marlene will introduce themselves in a little bit when I put them on the spot and ask some questions. How about if everybody just goes around and says hi and where you're from, just very quickly. Tanya?
Hello, I'm calling in from a crisp and sunny 4 p.m. Johannesburg, South Africa.
Marlene is going to be writing in the chat a great deal today because she has lost her voice. Jean.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jean from France, south of France, more specifically, and happy to see you again, most of you.
Jeannie.
Hi, I'm Jeannie, and I'm from Victoria, British Columbia, on the west coast of Canada, where it is 7 a.m. Got my first coffee.
Dear Teresa, I've not seen you for a very long time. Hello.
Hello, it's delicious to see you too. I'm Teresa Bertram, and I'm in the center of the country now. I'm in Wisconsin, and we're having unseasonably cool weather right now, but it's going to be a beautiful day either way.
Lovely. Hello, Ken.
Hi, this is Ken. I'm in Japan. Time is 12:30 p.m. or 11 p.m. It's just monsoon season came over. It's so humid weather arrived at my house and around me. That's my situation. I'm happy to be here to meet all of you. Thank you.
Good to see you. Joan?
Morning, everyone. I'm excited to be here this morning. I'm also in Victoria, British Columbia, where it's a very kind of overcast, dreary kind of morning, but I have coffee, so all's good.
Hello, Kristen.
Hi, everyone. It's great to hear everyone's weather that's going on. We had a huge thunderstorm come through. It got black out and then a tornado warning. And so we've had a lot of drama this morning. I just moved outside of Atlanta and I'm loving this really cool weather. Good to see everyone.
Hello, Snowy.
Hi, everybody. Snowy Matlango. I'm in Johannesburg. What do I say now? Just a note. Marlene is my baby sister, older than her.
When Tanya said, "Oh, there's snowy," I thought she meant it was snowing. So excuse me for Eva.
Sorry about that. I'm having technical opportunities this morning. Hi, I'm so glad to be here. I'm from Montreal in Canada. And a little bit, we're having similar weather to Victoria, it looks like in British Columbia. So my garden is getting watered. I'm very happy.
Hello, Rachel.
Hey, we have Rachel Cat. Rachel says, hello, everyone. I'm here with my toddler in Philadelphia, where it's 10 a.m. and a bit overcast. I'm glad to learn with all of you, with and from you all today, while we complete a few puzzles in silence. Thanks for that, Rachel.
Lovely. Welcome. And Lauren.
Hi, I'm Lauren Fetro. I'm in Wisconsin. I was actually invited by Teresa Bertram, so I'm very excited for the experience today. Nice to meet everyone.
Lovely. And I haven't given you my weather, but it's nice enough to have the windows open and the cicadas are not so loud right now. We've had cicada season and the noise has been amazing. So, all right, thriving women, thriving world. Yes,
Diane, a second, I just want to check if Rachel checked in.
Yes, she did.
Okay. All right, thank you.
She's with her toddler. Right?
Yes, so I'm sorry, not Rachel, I meant Lauren. So if everybody who's not on video checked in, then we're good. Not Rachel, I meant Lauren, sorry.
Yes. Lauren is on with Teresa. There she is. Got it. Thank you, Tanya. Thank you. You can see that we all try to practice what we preach to make sure everybody's included. So that's a great check-in. So as I was saying, thriving women, thriving world. Today, we're going to follow an approximate flow. How did the book come about? What is the book about? How is the book? Can it be used? Has it been used? Do we hope it is used? Some Q&A, a very brief experience, and more conversation about the book, given whatever time allows. So I want to begin by talking about how the book came about. As we planned, Tanya and Marlene and I are all having these different memories of time frames. And Jean, one of the early memories was my invitation to speak at the World Appreciative Inquiry Conference with the wish that I would bring along some other younger consultants. And along about that time in 2018, Tanya reconnected with me. She and I had met in South Africa when I spoke at a conference, Nexus for Change, in which we were talking about appreciative inquiry and open space and World Cafe and applying it to some of the social issues then. And Tanya, I was introduced by Peggy Holman, and she took Peggy and I out for an evening to feed people without homes. I don't know quite the appropriate language, but it was a very powerful evening, a deep connection. And so Tanya reconnected with me and started talking about some of her work with appreciative inquiry. And I went, perfect. She introduced me to Marlene, are now going to be my people for the conference. So I sent their name to Jean and said, okay, I have some younger colleagues. At the same time, we were organizing the Taos Institute 25th anniversary in Mexico City. And all of this time was in the shadow of a reawakening of oppression toward women and minorities. The Me Too movement was going very strong by then. And I was asking myself the question daily, what can be done from an appreciative inquiry perspective? What can we do? Amanda Trosten-Bloom, who many of you know, my friend and writing partner, and I were asking that question. And Mary Gergen, who is one of the people we want to really call out today as a love and instrumental person in this book, was saying to me, Diana, you've written so many books, but you've not written for the Taos Institute. You need to write for the Taos Institute. So this idea of a book about Me Too started to emerge in conversation with Mary, with Tanya, Marlene. And at the 25th anniversary, I connected with Jason, who many of you know, and she was all excited about the book. And another colleague who has passed, Alejandra, now I've got to get her last name right, Leon de la Barra. And so we started to become this very diverse conversation about women's issues and what was going on in the world. Tanya and Marlene were bringing questions of the intersection of race and gender. We were really opening up the doorway. And as we began to work, it became clear to us that the research was very clear that when women and children thrive, so do societies and communities. There is a great deal of research that shows that way. However, the majority of the conversation and the dialogue in the world is about the oppression and how women and children are not given equal opportunities. And so we came together, and I had in my mind a book that would fit into the genre of some other books, the Encyclopedia of Positive Questions, which many of you know is a book of questions, the Appreciative Team Building, which is a book of questions, Appreciative Inquiry in Healthcare, a book of questions and stories. So I had in my mind that that would be our model for this book. And we came together, and a wonderful gathering of most of us in Florida, and we just had a sort of ain't it awful conversational fest. All we did was find ways to tell war stories. And so we needed to change our own dialogue, the conversation among us as authors. And what we began doing is telling our stories. We said, okay, we are all successful in the world. We've got families, we have relationships, we have careers. We are a diverse group of women from South Africa, from the US, from Canada, from Korea, from Mexico. We have a breadth of experience. We need to share our stories of who and how we got where we are. And it was interesting because we kept drawing on the simple assumption and belief that people grow in the direction of what they study. So the more we can talk about thriving women and all of the many dynamics that contribute, the relationships, the support, the allies, and that began to start to surface our topics. And so I know we have a beautiful slide, Tanya, that shows all of us authors with the book cover. Do you want to pop it on right now? So there we are. That was after the book was out, but that was 2019. So we had a year of conversation and a year of writing and a year of really saying what kinds of questions will change the social contract around women and children in communities. And so we came up with topics in the book, thriving women at their best, claiming ownership of our bodies, because so many of the stories were how women move from abuse to health, healing from relational abuse, educating for social change, leveraging financial savvy. We in our stories, we had stories of our mothers, of people who helped us become financially aware. And of course, for us as a group of women working for the greater good, we're all dedicated to making a difference in the world. One of the topics, chapter 9, very controversial, women supporting women. We fell back so easily into stories of women who were backbiting. And we said, wait, we need stories of women supporting women. And then men supporting women. This can't be a book for only women. It has to be a book that is welcoming of all people. Creating thriving relationships, living life as a work of art, and then a closing chapter, the art of thriving, 5 arts of thriving. And so within each chapter, you find that we have questions, but we also have stories from our own experience, from the experience of our friends and loved ones that can be inspirational. We also have an opening poem that we ask young people to write for us that would also give us more diversity of authorship and have more voices. So we were always looking for, how do we expand the diversity of authorship? How do we look at the appreciative intersections, or the positive aspect of intersectionality? We know, again, so much about how it's hard for people, but we wanted to see where it could be life affirming. And then we realized that the book is a book to be used. And maybe, Tanya, we can change the picture so we can see each other, and that at the Appreciative Inquiry World Conference, the book was aimed to be ready, and it was a little bit after the conference, but we had an awful lot of the text of the book, and we created this practice at the conference. You'll see on, let's see, help me out here, Tanya, purple. The purple cards are social issues. The green cards are appreciative inquiry practices. And so we had small groups of people randomly pick a purple card and a green card and say, how is it that you might apply this particular appreciative inquiry practice to this particular social issue? Because that's what we did throughout the book. We took very relevant social issues and we applied appreciative inquiry to them. And so this is an exercise we welcome you all to play around with and experience. Now, that is a big overview. Tanya, Marlene, is there anything you want to add to that, just sort of what the book is about? Okay, so next question is, how do we use the book? And Tanya and Marlene happen to be 2 of the most, and hello to Dora and Barbara and Daryl, and see some new faces have joined us since we introduced ourselves. The book, as I said, is meant to be used. You can see even my book. If you look at Tanya's, we have yellow stickers from times that I've used it. So the first question I have for Tanya and Marlene is, what led you to say yes to writing this particular book, to joining the writing team?
So give Marlene some time to write into the chat her yes answer. And should I go ahead and share mine then, Diana, in the meantime?
Okay, great.
And I see we have a new Julie joining us, so that's fantastic. welcome, Julie. So my yes really came from this experience that I was having of healing through writing and of clarifying through writing, and really struggling in the moment to communicate what we were experiencing in our practice of applying appreciative inquiry into some of the hardest spaces and hardest conversations, to really invite people to connect with themselves and each other in meaningful ways, and to be able to write with a queen of writing. Diana, what you've done for the appreciative inquiry field in really putting your wisdom, shared wisdom, and processes into writing, where those of us across the globe could learn and apply so easily, was the most exciting invitation to try and do that, learning from you in our work. So that was my yes, big yes.
Thank you. Marlene. Are you there? Okay. Tanya, do you want to read Marlene's?
Sure. So I was curious about working with Diana, such a well-recognized woman in the appreciative inquiry space. Diana was open, welcoming, and modeled true inclusion and wise elder. I had no idea what writing a book would be like, nor what it would take, nor what the outcome could be. I also saw it as an opportunity to sharpen my saw around developing generative questions and creating opportunities for generative conversations. There is a need to focus on what was working and learning from it, and activating more ancestral joy than our ancestral trauma. The book is that gift. I can reconstruct how we see with our hearts and show kindness to each other in our workplace and in society.
Thank you. Thank you for putting that all in, Marlene. Yes, so we all had a yes to the content of the book, to joining together to write. And I mean, I could not have written this book without the team of co-authors. You know, we know that it takes a community to make meaning, and this was something important. So my second question to Tanya and Marlene about their use of the book, and you all will recognize this kind of a question. You've been using this book now for quite a while. Would you share with us a high point story of how you used the book, what the client was asking for, how you brought people together, how you adapted and let them adapt the book, and what were some of the magical outcomes?
Thanks, Diana. We want to lead with Marlene's response, but maybe as context, one of the things that we were discussing was the context for application for us is really the wholeness principle in appreciative inquiry, which was, how do we invite people in all their identities, right? So how do we were inquiring into gender and gender inclusion from exclusion, but what are so many of the different identities that if people could lean into that, would help them be allies, would help them be better listeners, better leaders, better colleagues. And so that's really how we stepped in, and we're mostly invited into this work with our clients. Just put there.
And so Marlene has written that they're going to talk about Liberty, which is a financial sector client, and invited the staff to share dialogue and stories around the lived experiences of women from a place of strength.
So when, Marlene, did you?
Oh, please go ahead and add. Hi, everyone.
Okay. There's Marlene. Hi, Daryl. Hi to DC. So So maybe just a little bit of context with this client is we specifically got invited in Women's Month in South Africa, where we'd been working with this client to create more inclusion. And they said, you know, we know you've written a book, and we'd love that book to help guide us in how to have a Women's Month conversation. Can we have the conversation in a very different way than often Women's Month's conversations were? And we said, absolutely, we'd love to do that. And so one of the things that we did was we asked some of the colleagues who would like to share a story on Women's Month at the staff meeting, but share it in a way that we want to work with you to explore into your space of strength or your learning in your story, and using some of the questions and the activities in the book to do that. So we had some staff volunteer. They wanted to speak about what it meant to be a woman. And so all of it was really intersectional. So I'm a woman coming from a rural town, and what it means to come to the big city and really have people understand that coming from a rural place has so many gifts and wisdoms, and that perhaps you don't necessarily see that in the big city, as well as what kind of support would I appreciate receiving, how to be my ally as a woman coming from a rural village, to one, not just see me as less than because I'm rural, but these gifts that I bring because I am rural. And so some of the questions in the books, having us see what is traditionally seen as areas of exclusion, but places of strength. So sharing that story, and then also sharing how I can be better supported in the workspace to bring all my gifts of where I come from as a rural woman. So that's one example from that client.
And I think that, I don't know if Marlene's going to write something, but there's a great example of how we continuously sort of flipped and turned, because so often that intersectionality is seen as something that adds to the struggles we have, adds to the hardship. But being able to say, I'm a woman from a rural community, and let me tell you what I know about community, or let me tell you what I know about whatever it is, whatever her story is. So that is truly a gift to allow that kind of conversation, Tanya. Is there more?
So Marlene just typed into the chat, they also know about clients from the community. So they add value to the firm based on their experiences that they can bring in.
Let's take Snowy's comment and let me ask you about it, Tanya and Marlene. She says she likes how the book is written, and it takes away some of the conversations that would normally be fearful to engage in. How do you present some of these kinds of issues to your clients in ways that do help make it welcoming and safe?
So one of the things that we do, and I think many that are on this call also do, is we talk about what we focus on grows. And so we have this image that many of you are familiar with that shows, you know, there's a hole in a ditch and there's a mound, and that we can, at both moments, there's actually this deficit. It's not about denying it or that it's not there. It's there, right? So at the same moment, we have this mound that came from this ditch, which are these assets and these strengths. And so a lot of times when we invite people is to say that we're not negating the deficit and the challenges. What we're doing is also seeking that within even those moments or within those spaces, or perhaps the narrative, and that's what we love about social constructionism, is how can we ask questions that help us build our muscle to look and to seek and to trust and to know that there are also strengths. And Marlene's, what she posted into chat before, even as I was reading it aloud, I almost, felt like tearing up. It's like there's ancestral joy as well, as much as in this moment as our ancestral trauma. And so how do we ask questions the way the book does? Is it says, let's talk about, many of us have had these moments of not feeling like we have compassionate spaces to be held and to be heard. And so there's, of course, questions in there around a compassionate community, and that's one of our favorite ones. So we ask people, well, what's an identity where maybe you have experienced exclusion, right? So for me, as a woman of color, let's say that would be a common experience. But then in the book, we invite the questions of, well, think about a time where you have been in a compassionate community for women of color. And what was that like? How did it feel? How were others in that space? And then I get to tell that story. And through telling stories, just like we learn through writing, it's not only a process of healing, but also of insight and discovery of, oh, this were the values or the actions or the possibilities that I might be able to recreate, build, or expand on in this workspace or in this moment of exploration with each other.
And Marlene has written, conflict resolution and honest conversations are flipped and stated as caring enough to confront the issues and the belief that things could be better. Thus, the conversation focuses on how to have the best conversations to move forward and grow. Absolutely. I think that when we share stories, or we hear someone else's story of how life has been good for them, it gives us a belief that we can have more of that in our life as well. And so I might still be in the midst of a conflict, but if I hear Joan tell a story and it really opens a possibility, then that gives me a kind of openness and resiliency, to use Joan's own work, to face the conflictual situations. And so I think that's really a good one. And Marlene says, this is noted women at their best in chapter 3. I think we each have favorite questions in chapters. Tanya, what's do you, off the top of your head, you said compassionate communities.
Yes, that's one of my favorites. Because we're so much about, in this time of isolation, and even, in the UK, they created a minister of isolation, which is wonderful. I'd love it to be a minister of social connectedness. What are the words that turn our gaze towards what we want? And so compassionate communities is what transform our workplaces and our homes and our families. And hello, welcome, Louise, and great to see you, and Camille.
Yeah, I think, and Marlene, do you have something that you would say, oh, there's one that's a favorite for you? The Art of Thriving, right? Yes, it gives us a day-to-day modeling. And I think the Arts of Thriving, the chapter 13, I agree with that. Just to do a brief overview of these 5 practices to share life-affirming stories. I mean, just ask people. So tell me a story about when was someone at their best. Maybe it was a troublesome staff member. Maybe it was, an athlete who's having a bad time. I mean, that question can be used in so many different contexts. With aging, I think, Teresa, I'm not sure what you're working on these days, but certainly I can remember your work with people in different ages. Creating meaningful disruptions, the idea of causing good trouble. If we're creating transformation, we have got to challenge the status quo. There's just no two ways about it. No matter how much we flip our questions, no matter how much we change the conversation, we've got to change conversations in the direction of meaningful disruptions, good trouble, appreciative disruption of certainty. You've heard David and I talk about before. Caretaking generative relationships. It's okay to not be everybody's friend, but to really caretake those that are generative, those that are life affirming for you, that are life affirming for other members of the community. They often need to be nurtured because often they are the disruptive relationships. Celebrating strength and success. We found over and over again in our conversations that women are often not living fully into their own sense of self because relationally, they don't have anyone saying, hey, that was good, go for it, lifting them up. And then cultivating the conditions for thriving. So much of your work, Tanya and Marlene, has been, as you said in the beginning, within the context of wholeness. So you've worked on these very deep and meaningful relational issues, but always in the context of an organizational setting. Would you talk a little bit about that? I know it's a very open-ended question, but.
No, would love to speak about that and give an example. So we, of course, we offer a public course. I think that's how we know Louise and a few others, and where we use the book and we talk about appreciative inquiry within intercultural and diversity, equity, inclusion spaces. And so we had a global client who had such a great experience. They said, we need to bring this internally. So they are a government agency that works globally. So they're in 64 countries around the world. And as part of their mission stepping into transformation, as Diana was saying, was they wanted to form equity councils within the different countries in which they work. So what does that look like that's culturally relevant in these different spaces? And one of the things that they hoped for and why they asked us why we're now doing the course with them internally, and we kick off our first webinar, our first class is with the book, and part of the homework is actually doing compassionate communities with each other as an interview, is because what the client experienced and what all their colleagues are now experiencing is that it's one thing to create a council to address a matter or an issue from your head. It's another when you have the heart experience of connecting with someone in a way that you can listen differently, you can find bridges to understanding, and then co-create solutions with each other because you're in a strength-based relationship with each other and a space of listening. And so when people then get assigned to have this interview with each other using the compassionate communities questions, and I can screen share it so that you can actually see it, is they had this experience of deep connection around something that is often a challenging identity. Let me just go ahead. And so these are the questions. So the invitation was, whatever the identity is that you might have, where you might have experienced some exclusion. So maybe you're a person of color, maybe you're LGBTQI community. We even have some people, they're left-handed, for example, right? And all the chairs are seated for right-handers. And so we invite them to interview each other and to listen, and then to switch roles. And the experience they have of being able to speak about an equity issue from a place of compassion and strength and being listened to and connect is the experience that then they want to co-create and make live and real within these equity counsels, so that when they get into tough spaces, they can remember their relationship and also remember, how do we ask questions that help us seek the future or the answers that we want, rather than just the solutions as in problems to be solved solely. I just want to see if Marlene wants to add anything into the chat while we're so with this client, they have their own model of how to be successfully intercultural, you know, if you're working in 64 countries. So they have what's called the self-other bridge, right? So that awareness of self, awareness of another, and then how do you create a bridge? So people make up systems. Individually, we make up the collective. We focus the relational and the dialogic principles. Connection before content, connect before working together, and connect as we do the work together.
Lovely. I imagine, Tanya and Marlene, that as you're using, for example, the question compassionate community, and you let people fill in the blank of their own experience of exclusion or oppression, that there are surprises as they interview each other. I imagine people are going, I didn't know that about you. I didn't know that mattered. Is there a degree of that in the process?
Absolutely. It's a two-part journey. One is self-discovery. It's remembering those parts of you and your history and your experience. And through this compassionate, caring witnessing, or, you know, where your interviewee, where your colleague doesn't need to think outside of these incredible questions. Can I just say what I love about the book also, when people are, as Snowy was saying, like fearful of topics, we say, you know, the questions are there for you. You don't need, they come from protocols and incredible impact. Just try them on as they are. And so you can release being worried about the questions and be present to the answers and what comes up for yourself or each other.
Lovely. Is there anything else that either of you like to say before I ask our wonderful gathered group if they have questions? Tanya, Marlene?
Maybe I just want to say that for those who have written and those who haven't and should, and being called to it, like Marlene said at the beginning, you don't know what's possible until you try. And I had no idea that we could hold space in such a difficult, painful, big T trauma space through the kind of questions and invitations that we were able to co-create in the book. And I'm eternally grateful for knowing what's possible and for really wishing to continue to invite people to have this experience of healing and action from these kinds of questions. Thank you.
Great. So, okay, let me just see. I want to change the conversation, add your voices to it. If you have any questions for any of us about the book, about how it's been used, about the weather. Any questions? You can probably raise your real hand or your chat hand. I'm not sure how that works. Yes, Louise.
I just wanted to say I absolutely love the book, and I'm a huge fan of Tanya and Marlene's work. And I suppose I had an opportunity to do the course with them a couple of years ago, which was an amazing experience. And I've just been using the book as part of my PhD research with mothers in addiction recovery, and it's been amazing. I suppose something that I'm just really interested to hear your thoughts about as well, something that I've kind of found, I don't know, and I'd love to hear if anyone has had something similar, is I suppose I found that some women maybe that are further on in their recovery were in a space to connect with the questions in a different way. Whereas for some women, it was like when I met them, they weren't even really in a space where they were able to, I suppose, engage with the questions. It was like they really just needed a space to talk rather than even have any kind of structured question. And I just wondered around what your kind of thinking is around that in terms of, I suppose, I don't know, it's like when people feel maybe that they haven't had any space to talk at all, to what degree can we hold that kind of open for them? And even that question of compassionate community, I found it like really, really helpful, and it actually prompted an amazing discussion with the women together about a month ago, and it was just an amazing piece. But it's like at the same time, like there's been a lot of experiences where they haven't experienced compassion, but I can also see how there is compassion and there's learning in that, even in terms of how compassion might look. So I thought I'm probably kind of giving you lots of different things, but I just love to know your thoughts around that. So
I'll answer it, and then Tanya, Marlene, if you have something. I think one is it's quite brilliant that you see the subtleties of people's readiness to talk about different parts of their life, to share their stories. And there's no doubt that we can't all come in at the same place in situation. We made a lot of choices as we wrote the book. How far do we go in different topics? But what I would say as I've listened to you is acknowledging to every woman in your presence that they're there, they're alive, that there is something life affirming in them, life giving. And then you can create easy questions. What is it in you that's calling you to live? It can be that simple. What is it that's saying, yay, I'm glad I'm alive? And what do you need from us to tell your story? What kind of support do you need? So you take these questions, you adapt them, you make them even more delicate if need be, or more in your face if need be, right? And that's part of what we love about offering this book, is that it's yours to adapt and change. So great.
Diana, I want to just add one piece, because I think what we know in work of shadows and tough spaces is also creating space for it. And the question we always get asked is, well, how much space, before you get into strengths and all that. And there is no answer around that. We really invite people into their wisdom. But one of the things that we've been finding is, well, what are some of the tools and techniques that help people who haven't had the space to really process? And so I'm going to put that into the chat. It's an incredible methodology that now there's been tons of research around it, and it's for free, and it's got a huge impact on so tons of impact research around like your immune system and your well-being and all that. Is called expressive journaling. And so some of these tools might be what's helpful to do with people that you're working with before you come into a group conversation, to then be able to invite them to be in these generative questions and spaces around tough things. And they can do it on their own in their privacy. And it has, when you follow the protocol, incredible benefits for creating some space for what's hard to process, to get into the kind of questions and possibilities that we're speaking about here.
Lovely. In all of my work over years and years in different settings, what I'm always looking for is, where are the habits? What habits? Where do we need to find a crack in the cosmic egg? So sometimes people's woundedness, their hurtfulness, their what gets called shadow is their habit. It's how they get attention. And they haven't had a clue about strength-based. And so when I sense that could be what's going on, that's always a place to take a little risk. But it's delicate. And when we're working organizationally, we're not always working quite in the depth that you and Tanya are referring to. So other questions? Why'd you show up today to this conversation? Daryl.
I've been waiting for that question. Thank you. I actually showed up because, and I'm going to maybe potentially embarrass her a little, hopefully not. I met Marlene, and I don't know if you remember Marlene. I met you 10 years ago in Johannesburg. Michael. I was doing work with Michael Ogawa's firm years ago, and I was treated like it was the most hospitable experience I can recall working for a client. And my first and only time in Johannesburg, which was transformative in itself. And so I am here because I am connected to Marlene on LinkedIn, and I caught this meeting in her feed, and I said, I'm going to at least show up to see her and hear her and find out more about what this organization's about. I had heard of it, but didn't know much. So I guess I'll say thank you, Michael, and thank you, Marlene.
Thanks, Daryl.
Thank you. Thank you, Daryl, for that wonderful recognition. Tanya, we're sort of hitting our time. We have, it looks like about 6 minutes. What do you think? Marlene, any ideas?
Well, if we had in our back pocket, if people wanted an experience of the book in this moment to guide you through some questions and to see. So wondering if people would like that. That's one option. I see.
Yes, Joan says yes.
Teresa, you went off mute. Do you want to?
I'd like to comment. First, it's a delight to see Diana. So that's one reason that I set aside what is for us a holiday morning. But second, I have had the opportunity to thrive, and my professional and personal thriving is often based in what I understand from appreciative inquiry and social construction. I also work with women who are strong women that I want to provide for them the opportunity to thrive and grow on their terms in ways they haven't imagined yet. And so my hope for my takeaway today, besides buying a whole ton of your books, is to help women that are already shaping communities and doing profound work, but probably don't really know that at their core. And so I'd like to help that. So thank you for the privilege of this morning. Diana, congratulations on shaping a path for younger colleagues to emerge. Very powerful in and of itself, thriving women. So with that, I'll sign off.
Thank you. And I'm going to jump in and use Teresa's comment about buying books as a segue. The book is published by the Taos Institute. So if you do buy it, a bit of it goes to the Taos Institute, which is wonderful. But we authors, I think it was last year, decided that the royalties we get, which those of you who write books know are not tremendous, but our royalties are going to South Africa so that Tanya and Marlene can use the royalties in ways that they see fit to help the communities of women there. It just made so much sense for us because we have a direct relationship. So the more books you buy, the more good you can help us do. Thank you. I keep looking this way because I actually have my flip chart in my office with my notes on it. So I think we've got it covered, Tanya and Marlene. I think what I want to say in closing, and then I'll turn it over to Tanya and Marlene, is the Taos Institute was founded by a group of friends, a group of colleagues who all have an understanding that meaning is made in relationship, that language is one of our most powerful tools, and that the more we embrace the differences among us, the richer the societies are that we can create. And so it's been an honor for me as a founder of the Taos Institute to work with so many of you over time and to keep putting that message out in the world that words matter. Our language is in fact palpable. The sounds we utter into the world and the meaning we put into the world impact our relatedness, our societies, our organizations, our possibilities for the future. And so with that, Marlene and Tanya, closing comments.
As Marlene's typing. May, as the month of mental health awareness, is a reminder of well-being and inner work. And the book invites us into different contexts of self-care, generosity, and self-compassion while doing work in the world. The self-care message is for everyone, what we are doing to thrive in adversity, how we care for and focus on mental well-being that is working. How do we continue to do self-care and inner work? Thanks for that reminder, Marlene. And I love that people are putting resources into the chat. If I can please invite everybody to do that, because there's this recording and you can save the chat. I know we didn't get to the activity and some of you all wanted that, so we'll just put our email into the chat and we can find another time to gather and to practice together. And I do want to say that to Jean, who created the space that invited people at the conference to bring people together, that was the impetus for Diana to bring us. Women thriving is because spaces are created for many of us, and so many. And so Diana, just a big thank you again for, you were fierce. And I think you really walked your talk of the invitation of bringing new voices and diverse voices in, and all this beauty and this impact was created from there. So I would be remiss not closing this without thanking you and Alex, thanking Taos for creating the book space and for creating this opportunity to come back and say, how are we applying it? How are we inspired into actions? And we look forward to continuing to engage you all, because many of you, as we know you, are actually creating inspired actions in the world. And we need more of us together like this, inspiring and co-creating. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Tanya. Thank you, Diana. Thank you, Marlene, for this wonderful, inspiring conversation, and wonderful to circle back with you, like you said, about this book that was written a few years ago and now coming back together to explore how you're using it. It's very, very powerful and inspiring. And also, we have recorded this conversation, so feel free to share it. It will be posted on the Taos Institute YouTube channel, also in the Taos Institute Commons, the online community that is free and open to all. And one of the reasons for this space to exist is that we want follow-up conversations. So we really encourage you to watch the recording if you want, but also post comments and stay in touch. We can post the resources that have been shared there. And it's really a space for you all to continue to stay connected and share resources and activities that you're all doing all over the world. So thank you to all of you. And it was a pleasure seeing you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Can everybody go off mute and do a diverse, messy goodbye? Thank you.
Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Thank
everybody.
you
Great.
Bye.
for an amazing morning.
Marvelous, marvelous, marvelous.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Merci, merci.
Bye, Dora. Good to see you.
Women honoring other women. Yes.
Yes.